Hey everyone, welcome to the Unaware Podcast.
What's up, guys?
The show where we talk about the idea that it's okay to be unaware. It's okay not to know.
Of course it is.
And today we got some cool things on the agenda. But first, as always, it's your hosts, Andrew Ludy.
Tis I, Paul Canner.
Oh, I like that one. Tis I. That sounds so majestic.
Thought of that on the way here today.
Yeah, but as you guys, well, if you guys are watching this, if you're listening, we don't have a guest today, so we're back to the normal setup.
It's just us.
I have my camera, my seat back. Paul has his seat back.
I have my microphone back.
We have the 3-camera setup. If you guys are the ones who watch, if not, we still love you. Honestly, audio is a great format for podcasts, so that's okay.
No, I'm gonna be listening to the pod in the car.
Oh, same, dude.
Just listen to ourselves.
Honestly, every Monday at I think it's at 7 a.m. is what I think it's going to launch at. One a week. There it is. Built into the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So that goes for all you guys listening too. Do it.
Do it.
But, today we kind of have on the agenda to talk about the overall
idea. We don't have an agenda.
Well, we have an idea. That's true, though. We don't have anything scripted. It's just a conversation. But an idea is to kind of talk about the idea of peer pressure and conformity and
individualism.
Yeah, kind of like how
did I say that right?
Yeah, you did. Individualism. When you first said it before this, before we were recording, it was like, that's weird. But no, you got it this time.
Individualism.
Yeah. Well, now it just sounds weird if you say that.
It sounded weird every time I've said it.
Well, then let's just not say it for a bit, and then it'll come back normal. That's how that works.
Individualism.
Now it sounds weird to me. Anyway, we're going to get into that. But before we do, a message from our sponsors. Paul, if you want to take this one away, go for it.
Yeah, this podcast is brought to you by Andrew's bank account. Check out the unaware.com website thing that we're working on.
ProjectUnaware.com.
ProjectUnaware.com.
Thank you. That was a message from our sponsors.
That was a message from the one and only sponsor, Andrew's bank account.
Oh, yeah. I do have a quick story for you before we get into the thing. Before we get into the thing. So, Charlie, everyone, is my freshman roommate from college. Freshman year roommate.
Great guy. Salt of the earth.
We didn't know each other before college. We had no idea. We kind of went in blind. Like, people who've gone to college know the process of trying to find a roommate. A lot of times you go in with someone you know. I did not. Right? So you had the choice to either let Miami pick, or you can go to Facebook and try and find people. And so I put this thing on Facebook. A bunch of people messaged me, and I was like, nah, no, not really. And actually, funny, even Micah Peterson messaged me.
Whoa.
And before I knew him. And
for those who don't know, we lived with Micah for about 2 years.
Yeah. Well, I lived with him 3 years.
Yeah, you did.
Because I lived with him.
Shout out to Micah.
Year. Love you, man. But it's before I knew him. And I think I took too long to respond. But by the time I did, I was like, he's like, oh, I actually already found a roommate. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Everyone else I kind of said no to. And then Charlie, this guy with a Facebook account that has no information on it, a picture of him underwater in a scuba tank head. That's the only thing I got. Goes, hey, man, you look really cool. I agree with what you said. You want a room? And for everyone else, they had this huge paragraph about like why they think we'd be great roommates. And I don't know why, but I was like, sure. Like, he gave me no information about himself. And I was like, yeah, why not? Dude,
I am so glad that I did not have to go through the roommate choosing process, because I went to a branch campus of Miami for 3 years. So
dirty branch kid.
I didn't have to live in a dorm, but I still lived in Oxford in a house with some buddies. But yeah, I'd never had to pick a roommate.
Well, I'm lucky I did, because he turned out to be one of my best friends.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Dude, I love him. And what's fun is he's going to be on the pod next week, potentially, if we can get scheduling figured out. But he'll be on the next pod, if possible. But that's a little bit of backstory. We might be able to get more into our friendship and what stuff happens when he does come on the show. But he lives in Michigan, right? So he goes up to the UP, so the Upper Peninsula, where it's pretty much just woods and lakes up there, nothing else.
I can't believe you said Michigan, not Exagon.
You know, I'm trying to remain open-minded.
Oh, we're from Ohio, in case you guys didn't know. So we
got beef.
We hate the team up north.
We have some
north.
beef with the people up north. But yeah, my roommate, he was from Michigan. Although,
I mean, side note, why are they called Michiganders? why is that what they're called?
I don't know. What are we, Ohioans?
Ohioans, which makes sense.
Better. Yeah.
Well, what's a Michigander?
They gander around Michigan, I guess. I don't know. Michigander.
Anyway.
Little
side note.
So he's from Michigan, right? And so he was driving back from the UP to his house in Detroit area. And he always calls people. And he called me, and I happened to be at the drop zone for, where I skydive. And I was packing a parachute because I'm practicing that so I don't, die when I pack my own. It's very complicated, a lot of steps to it. You have to be very safe, at least when you start. I watch people now, and they know how to do it so well that they just and it's done. And I'm like, I've spent like 25 minutes trying to get this thing packed.
Hey, dude, you're a beginner. You're learning.
I know. I got to be very intricate.
You got to be precise so that you don't die.
Well, it's not even that I don't die. It really just depends on how it opens in the air. So whether it opens up faster, slower, how it opens up, why, that all comes from if you generally get it in the bag and you at least get the rubber bands right, it will open. So it's more of just the comfort of opening. If you don't pack it right, it will open up and stop you real fast because there's a little slider that causes it to open slower. So you kind of whee, and it's a peaceful opening. You got to pack that right. So Charlie calls me, and I'm packing the bag, and this is Sunday. And, we're talking, we're catching up, we're talking about all the random stuff we always do, like cryptocurrency, mining, where business world's going, investing, all that good stuff, right? Yeah. Elon Musk is in there sometimes.
Elon Musk
electric. And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm at the drop zone. And I was like, have you ever wanted to go skyline? He's like, actually, skyline. Got skyline on my mind. Skydiving. Can you tell we're from Ohio, Cincinnati area?
Do you wanna go skylining?
Skyline, get a coney.
We're gonna start saying that. Hey,
you wanna go skylining?
You wanna go skylining?
And he's like, dude, I've actually always wanted to go, but I never have. And I'm like,
what's stopping you?
That's kind of what I said. I'm like, all right, why not? And he goes, I'm like, we could go this weekend when you're in town, because he's coming for a wedding Thursday, then he's staying Friday and Saturday night because we're going to go to the Quinn concert Friday and then hang out Saturday. I'm like, and he's like, well, maybe it won't fit in our schedule. I'm like, dude, you're staying all Saturday. We can go Saturday. And he goes, you're right. And he goes, how much is it? So I go talk to the girl who owns it, and she's like, oh, it's $210 for tandem jump, which is they break even on that. If you look at the price breakdown, which is crazy. They only make money on the video packages. So if you want to help a skydiving zone out, get the video package. That's the only profit they get, basically. But most people do because they jump once and they want video of it. So I tell him that, and he goes, honestly, man, I've been living at home because he's been working virtual because they don't have his office isn't open, and he's not paying rent. And he goes, I'll do it. And I was like, I've been waiting for someone to say that for so long.
I did say it.
I know, but then you medically can't, and it hurts my heart.
I'm going to do it anyway.
We just won't tell anyone. Well, now it's recorded.
My doctor, if you're listening, just turn down the volume real quick.
So, long story short, out of nowhere, Charlie spontaneously now has signed up for Saturday at 3 o'clock to go skydiving with me. And that's going to be a blast.
Heck yeah, dude.
So if that doesn't tell you what type of guy he is, just like the go with the flow, he's honestly one of the chillest dudes. And then all of a sudden he just gets these spikes of spontaneous energy. And he's like, yeah, why not? Let's do it. So I'm pumped. I'm excited for this weekend. I honestly can't wait. Because Friday, my business is doing an archery tag thing for the whole second half of the day. So I'm going to be a little late to the Quinn concert. Then we're hanging out, going skydiving, playing some disc golf. It's going to be a good weekend.
It's gonna be a great weekend.
So that's just a little story I wanted to tease Charlie's appearance and also just kind of show you that.
A little teaser for next week.
Yeah. Well, that and like, he's never been skydiving. He had no idea on that conversation that he would say yes to something that crazy, and yet he did.
Yeah.
You know?
It's kind of like what we've been talking about for the past 4 weeks.
That's what I'm getting at, man. He
gets it.
Yeah, you could
He
say
gets
he's
it. You should get it too.
Yeah.
So should all of you.
All the people.
All of you.
But no, he's an awesome guy, and I think we're pretty excited to have him on next week.
We are
so
excited.
make sure to check back next Monday at 7. Before that, we have something to talk about today.
Yeah.
Paul. And that is
Commercial time.
commercial time. Is it? Oh, you hear that? The message from our sponsors.
Yeah, I think it's a message from our sponsor.
ProjectUnaware.com, everyone. Go check it out.
Andrew's wallet/bank account.
My wallet/bank account, paying for that. There's a lot of big things in the move-in stage right now, planning stage right now. We're getting things done, but make sure you check out the blog too. I write some stuff. I think it's pretty cool. That's on there, and also the podcast. So just check it out.
Yeah.
And
Welcome
that,
back, everyone.
Concludes a message from our sponsors. So,
dude, I love our sponsor, dude.
Honestly, they're the best sponsor out there. They're so kind. They're understanding. They don't make us talk about something we don't like.
I feel like our sponsor is like my best friend. Dude.
Those guys at Project Unaware just like really, really do some awesome stuff.
They really do.
You should really go support them, man. Like they're basically my best friend too.
One in the same.
Oh man. ProjectUnaware.com. Last little what is that called?
Interjection.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll start this off by teeing up why I want to talk about this. I brought it up to you a few days. Like, hey, I think this would be a cool topic to talk about. And the reason why is I think everyone, and that's a bold statement, but I think everyone at some point in their life has struggled with peer pressure in some shape, form.
Yeah, dude. Everyone has.
And a lot of the times, plural, you oftentimes, you might say no to it, but, you're making steps towards conformity. So what I mean by that is think about the people you're around.
Mm-hmm.
You might not necessarily be peer pressure to become like them, but there's still this inner part of ourselves that slowly becomes them because we don't want to miss out or feel left out, feel like we don't belong. And so we shape ourselves to be like the people around us or to have the passions,
I know exactly what you're talking about. Groups of people, they become each other.
They do.
They will pick up words and phrases and just kind of mannerisms of their friends, and then they become this squad that does the exact same thing and says the same exact thing. Yeah. That is conformity at its finest.
So this is the question I have written down. This is one of the only questions I have written down. Is that a bad thing? Is conformity, at the broadest view, is that a bad thing?
So this came to me immediately. I don't think it's a bad thing when it comes to you and your friends. Conforming to your friend group, I don't think it's a terrible thing.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to conforming to society, doing something because society tells you that that's what you should do, or doing something because literally everyone's doing it, or it's becoming popular or trendy. I think trends are a very good example of conformity in today's society.
I think any society. I do think it's more visible now with social media, like just highlighting trends. But I mean, back then, everyone wore the same little like
Cargo
shorts, and like they would in the 80s, they'd all look similar and go roller skating. Like trends show up and people follow it. I think that's a great like. If you say conformity isn't a thing, look at trends and look how people dress similarly. Look at fashion. Look at anything.
Literally, like, even how you post on, like, Instagram. Like, the edits you do.
Mm-hmm.
Or, like, the short caption or the long caption. Or I think we were talking about last week. The
photo dump?
Multiple
Is that what
photos. Yeah, the photo dump.
Which I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
I don't get on that much.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't posted since February.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Instagram and like that's really what people use now. TikTok, people use TikTok a lot.
Still not on TikTok yet.
TikTok is like the definition of conformity. Like there's definitely like individualism on TikTok, but a lot of people see that other people are getting a lot of likes and a lot of views for doing this one thing, and then they're like, oh, I can do that, I should do that, then I'll get a lot of likes and views,
which that
for
works,
doing the
right?
exact same thing. Yes,
so there's an incentive.
There's an incentive, but who cares?
I mean, let's say I'm a TikToker and I'm trying to go viral.
That's true. If you're a TikToker,
that's where I come from.
I guess.
That's almost a smart idea. But then there's the argument of like, well, do you want to be like everyone else? Is that
like,
the way you truly stand out?
But what do you gain from this? I don't
know.
We've said it before. What are you gaining from the social media? Are you posting for the right reasons?
That's a question I think
people
can only answer themselves. Are you posting for yourself,
or are you posting for others?
I mean, I can't answer that for everyone else. I know people. If
that was a rhetorical question.
I know. But I think if people actually ask themselves that, I don't know if they could be honest with themselves. Like, that's where we're at. It's like so muddled that, like, I don't know.
People don't want to post, like, selfishly, but in the end, that's what they're doing. Not all the time. I'm not saying all the time.
Like, there are times, the times I do use Instagram, I get on, I put a story on there because I'm like, oh, this is funny. I want my friends to see it.
Right, yeah.
But that's still because I want my friends to see it. Now, that's not necessarily a bad
for, like,
thing.
Interaction
right?
and stuff, yeah. It's not to feel, like, validated or, like...
But at the same point, there's a part of me that's like, oh, all my friends saw it. They know I'm cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I did a backflip at this wedding. People think I'm sick. You
do a backflip at every wedding.
It's because they ask.
That's conformity.
Well, there's a difference when they ask. But I mean, to be fair, I conform a lot.
Yeah, I mean, same.
Going into work, right? There's a culture there that I go into, and I fit myself where I am as an individual into that culture, into, I guess what you could say is that pressure to fit in at my company.
Because they have a certain way of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's a certain way to succeed. There's a certain way to stand. And they build these things forward. And so, in a way, that's almost a stage of conformity. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No.
Because if I go in there and I'm like, screw all this, I'm going to get fired. At the end of the day, like that's how that works.
Sometimes I have that attitude. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to listen to this person telling me what to do because, like, I want to do it my way because I think my way might be faster.
But some of the times it's not, and we're just so stubborn that we're not willing to listen. But I think that's a different conversation.
Yeah. We're talking about conformity here.
So the thing we were going to talk about this with Mandy last week. And the reason why is because one of the phone calls we've had recently, she was talking about marriage, the topic of it. And I think, at least in our lives, very prevalent with, I have my 7th wedding in October for this year I'm going to.
Dude.
That's so many weddings.
Everyone, literally another one of my friends just got engaged yesterday.
One of our friends is ring shopping. One of yes, we're that age. But what she brought up is like she now feels that pressure. Or when she was in college too, like her house of girls that she lived with, a lot of them were like, I want to get married, or they had a boyfriend, or they were getting married, or and like when you're around that, it's hard not to want that.
Yeah.
Like when we lived together, I want this, or I want this. Like our wants, in a way, merged at times. Like disc golf. I want to play disc golf today. So do I. That's kind of a weird example, and not as like big as the wedding topic, but it still kind of goes to show that you form into this hodgepodge, clique, whatever word, of the people that you're always around.
Right. You have the same interest and like I said, the same mannerisms and words and phrases and everything. Like,
yeah. And I like how you said as that's not a bad thing when it comes to friend groups.
I don't think it is.
I think it can be to the extreme. So like, let's say I'm getting married just to get married because all my other friends are getting married. That's just doing something because other people are doing it.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
Now, are you conscious of that difference when you are doing and making decisions?
Am I conscious of what this...
So let's say, you're hanging out with friends.
Yeah.
And you're going to go do this because you want to do it. But if we actually analyze it, you wouldn't have wanted to do it unless you were with those people. So like, are you conscious that, like for people who are getting married, right? Mm-hmm. They want to get married to themselves, they would say, because they're ready to get married. A lot of the times it might not be the case.
It might just be the peer pressure, or like literally it's like a freaking pandemic in the summer when people are getting married. Like it's just like people are getting married, people are getting engaged, people are just going to weddings.
Going crazy.
Going to weddings, it's
a fun time, man.
It is
free
insane.
Food, the dancing, seeing friends that I haven't seen in a while. It is so fun.
But it makes you think. You're like,
yeah.
One of my best friends just got married.
And it still hasn't hit me like that. Some of my friends that are married right now, I'm like, wait, they're married.
All these people that are getting married are younger than me. And I'm like, that's when it strikes you. You're just like, that person's 2 years younger than me.
Yeah. Now, what does that thought do? Since we're on that, like, what does that thought lead to?
I mean, it definitely like leads to like, am I ready to get married right now? Am I ready to pop the question? Like, but at the same time, I'm like, I want to do this like on my time. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't want to be influenced by everyone else. Like when I'm ready, I'll know.
So how, and you might not know this because I don't know if I know this. How do you know that it's your time versus just that thought of like, am I ready because everyone else is getting married?
Dude, I don't know. I don't know.
That's what I'm trying to get at, is it's so hard to know like where that peer pressure stops. Like we think it's easy, right? Like, someone's peer pressuring me to, I don't know, like the old example as a kid, don't listen to the bully when they try to tell you to smoke a cigarette. Like, that's very obvious. If you say no,
Johnny's going to tell you to jump off a bridge, you're going to jump off too.
Like, there are very obvious examples of peer pressure. But when you go into that deeper part, that kind of gets that conformity. Where's the line? That's a hard question.
Yeah. That really makes you think.
And that leads my brain to go down, okay? Like, if I'm conforming so much, and this just then goes down to this like deep, shower thought, midnights thoughts.
What's
like,
reality?
Who am I? What do I actually like? What do I want? Like, who is Andrew? Right?
Yeah. Like,
those are big questions.
Who are you deep down past all the conformity?
That takes a lot of digging. And I don't know if I've gotten there. I have started.
Digging, buddy boy. Take a little shovel. Take a little shovel. Just
start digging into the heart. Start digging into the little guy. But that's scary. to do.
Yeah.
Because then you have to ask yourself, like, are you ready to, like, shake up your world to figure out who you are, your foundations? And I think you did this.
I did.
The rebrand.
Oh, the rebrand.
Like, I know we always joke about, like, oh, I'm rebranding. But to be honest, like, you were Tall Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And all the things attached to that, the people, like all the first impressions you had, how people viewed you, who you were to yourself and everyone around you, we call it a rebrand because it makes sense, but you dug deep and tried to figure out who you were, and that wasn't you.
That was a crazy time. That was the deepest I have thought ever.
And people
about my
still
life.
call you Tall Paul. Like, that's how hard it is.
Yeah.
And that was what? 3 years ago?
What? No.
Was it?
What? No.
I think it was.
It's coming up on 3 years.
Yeah.
Should
This
I
fall.
explain
This fall.
what happened?
Sure.
Yeah. So for about most of my my life, I went by the nickname Tall Paul because I'm a tall dude. I'm 6'6", which is tall.
It's kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you can't tell when I'm sitting down, but like
He's tall.
I'm tall.
Just accept the fact.
My knees are almost touching the bottom of the table.
Yeah. When I stand by him, I look very short. Although I am right at the average. Good old 5'9", 5'10" area average. And then Paul is like, hey, pal.
Hey, pal.
Or as Paul looks down at me, like,
Hey.
just your perspective on the world is so different. But that doesn't matter.
Anyway, so yeah, got this nickname in like 8th grade, and it just kind of stuck throughout college. Like I would start introducing myself as Tall Paul. Like
I
became
met you as Tall Paul.
it became who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And with it came a lot of pressure to be, I don't know, like outgoing and fun and
you
energetic.
were a rock
and
star
stuff.
my freshman year. It's like everyone knew. They might not have ever even talked to you, but they knew who Tall Paul was.
Like, I was a legend, I guess. But like, I mean, I don't want to say that, but that's what people said. They're like, Paul, dude, you're a legend. I'm like, what? Like, I don't know you.
Yeah. That was you on the inside, but Tall Paul on the outside was a legend.
Yeah. Yeah, but Tall Paul was like outgoing and energetic, and he like had to meet everyone and be friends with everyone. And then it was like junior year, and like I just went to Young Life Camp. No, Wildlife Camp, and then summer staff, Young Life Camp. And like I had a lot of time to think and stuff, and I was like, who am I? Like, why do I not feel like myself right now? It just kind of hit me. I'm just like, this is not who I am. It's exhausting trying to be this person that I'm not.
Like, what led to that hitting you? Because that was your life.
Dude, I think it was, so like on summer staff, I was going by Tall Paul at that time because I hadn't rebranded. And like everyone was calling me that, even the campers, like they started like chanting my name and stuff. And I'm like, I'm more than this nickname. And like, it really hit me when people just started calling me Tall. Like they would leave out the Paul or something. They'd be like, oh, what's up, Tall? I'm like, I have like a name, like a God-given name. And like, I know nicknames are okay and stuff, but like, I just didn't feel like myself. It felt like I was putting on like a show. No, not like a show. Just like, it was like fake.
A show, I think, works for that.
Yeah, show.
The show of Tall Paul.
Yeah. It was like a false identity.
Mm-hmm.
An alternate identity. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I just I was like, I'm done. I'm done with it. Done with the nickname. Throw it in the trash. Bury it in the sand. And then I just kind of made an announcement on Instagram. I was like, hey, Tall Paul's dead. And I said those words. Tall Paul is dead.
I remember that.
And then I ended it.
And I remember
I squashed the nickname Tall Paul.
I remember thinking it was a joke at first.
No,
Just because you literally went, Tall Paul's dead. And I was like,
it was a
okay.
huge decision for me. Because when you go by a nickname for like 8 years,
That's your identity.
8 years, like that's your identity. That's who you become. But that wasn't me.
Mm-hmm.
I was acting like an extrovert in an introvert's body. I'm an introvert at heart. Like I need time to myself. And I wasn't getting that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was exhausting. Like I had such bad FOMO, fear of missing out, that I wouldn't sleep because I was out till 4 a.m. just hanging out with people. Because I was like, oh, if I don't hang out with them, they're not going to like me. If I don't hang out with this person or these people, then they're not going to invite me back because I missed out.
Yeah.
That's like a real thing. And I'm sure a lot of people struggle with that. I don't struggle with that as much anymore. Because I was like when I rebranded, I became more of myself.
You became
like,
Paul.
I know who I am. I know what I like. I know what I need. And yeah, I'm just Paul now. Tall Paul's dead.
So this is kind of a multi-part question.
Yeah, go ahead.
What's the biggest difference?
Mm-hmm.
And what have you learned from that transition?
Biggest difference, I think, is I'm not worried about like meeting everyone and trying to be friends with everyone and spreading myself really thin. When I rebranded, I kind of focused my energy on forming tight relationships and friendships with people and just like diving deep. Whereas before I was like kind of surface level-y and like you said, like people would come up to me and be like, Tall Paul.
Who are you?
Half the time I would not know what their name was. I'm like,
yeah.
what's up, dude?
Dude, what's up? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest difference is like how I'm putting my energy towards my friendships and relationships and like really like diving deep.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
As well as like not being an extrovert.
I definitely noticed a difference. I mean, going from viewing you as the icon of Tall Paul versus living with Paul.
Mm-hmm.
This Paul was a lot more real, a lot more open and raw, and like it was a person, not a title.
Yeah.
From my
Dude,
perspective.
I'm telling you, when I was going by Tall Paul, I felt like I was hiding behind a mask. Like when I rebranded, I was like, how did I get away with that for 8 years?
And the crazy thing to me
mm-hmm.
is before I knew you, or like before I would have known you, I'd have been like, that's dumb. It's just a title. And I feel like
It's
so many people
way
have
deeper. It's way deeper.
It
than
is.
That.
And yet it's like, oh, dude, I mean, what are you talking about? It was just a name. Bull crap, you know, like.
It was more than a name.
But watching you go through
identity.
it, watching the difference and like actually seeing that it had real impact,
mm-hmm.
like that's why I'm just like, conformity is crazy. Peer pressure is crazy.
Yeah, like I feel like I could have not introduced myself as Tall Paul, but like I kind of became popular through that, and I was like, oh, this is working. So I just started
And then
to
everyone else
introduce
introduced
myself,
you
and
as
then
Tall Paul.
and then like it just became like the way it was.
Yeah.
Like, this is Tall Paul. This is how I introduce myself.
That's the way. Don't break from the status quo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then people are like, you're Tall Paul. And it was so hard when I rebranded or whatever we want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
because people were not down with it.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Charlie's calling me. I'll call him back later.
People were not down with it. And they would try to resist it. And they'd be like, no, not doing that. You'll always be Tall Paul. But I was like, no, that's
I'm
not
Paul.
me anymore.
Yeah.
I'm Paul.
My name's Paul. But
Hi, I'm Paul.
seriously, like,
Yeah.
that's cool, man. And I think you would be a very different man if you didn't do that. Like today.
For sure.
Which that's crazy. Like that one choice.
We might not even be doing this podcast.
Honestly, probably not. Because you still would have been Tall Paul, and I would have viewed you as this legend. I'm like, I can't live with this guy. He's too cool. You know?
Yeah.
No, I doubt that would actually be true. I'd probably end up still living with you, but you never know.
Mm-hmm.
That's just like the ripple effect is crazy.
Yeah, it's like time travel, dude. The butterfly effect.
The butterfly effect. That makes me think about how many people today are living as, let's say Andrew, but like, that's not me.
Yeah.
That's where peer pressure comes in. Because, yeah, you could say I'm doing it for myself because I want myself to be this. But why do I want myself to be that? Probably because it pleases other people. It's cool. Go down the list.
Yeah.
And so that peer pressure almost locks us into this, for you, the identity of Tall Paul. You didn't know it at first, but near the end of it, you're like, this isn't me. And yet you felt like you had to be that.
Mm-hmm.
Or else, who am I?
Right.
Like all I've known for, 8 years?
Mm-hmm.
All I've known for 8 years is Tall Paul. And you're telling me that I had to accept that that's not me? That had to be difficult.
Oh, it was for sure difficult.
And the idea of, people are going to think this is stupid, or I'm going to let people down, or like all those thoughts, I'm sure, flooded your head during that decision.
I just kind of had to accept it, though.
And that's hard. So how did you do that? Because I feel like people don't do that.
I'm built different. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, you are tall.
No, I think it definitely took a lot of courage and a lot of like self-realization to kind of realize that it doesn't matter what other people think. It doesn't matter what other people call me. Like, people still call me Tall Paul. I'm like okay with it. Like, I'm like, I understand. Like, we haven't hung out in a while. You only knew me as Tall Paul. So, but yeah, I think it took a lot of time and a lot of thinking about it to be like, okay, this is happening. I'm really doing this.
Mm-hmm. People
are getting on board. And like, it just, we kind of talked about it last week with Mandy. Like, Mandy, she wasn't Mandy.
It was born in a moment.
Yeah.
You know?
But like, yeah, I just came to the realization that this needs to change. It's going to happen. I did it and I stuck with it and I didn't waver from it.
So
like once I like made the decision, I'm like, there's no going back.
Yeah.
There is no going back. This is who I am.
Yeah.
This is what I was made to be. This is who I was made to be. and I'm not going to let other people decide who I am.
So it almost is going down the individual route. Like
Mhm.
you chose to be yourself as an individual, not
Yes.
as a collective.
Right. Yep.
Did that ever like dawn on you in that moment? Like, this is me. I'm no longer paying attention to what other people think of me. I'm no longer trying to become this person for other people. Like, did that help? Did you notice that? Or are you just now noticing that?
I think I did kind of notice it. Like, when I got rid of the Tall Paul nickname, I was just like, I don't care what
Mhm.
people think. Like, this is my decision. This is what I want. And I'm going to make it happen, you know? Like,
And you did.
I'm my own person.
Yeah.
The people don't decide for me. And they were with the Tall Paul nickname.
Mm.
So yeah, I guess at that point, I became an individual person.
You became Paul.
Yeah. Yeah. I did.
Paul Canner.
Paul Canner. Through and through.
So,
Started doing my own thing.
is there a point where chasing to become so individualistic is like, maybe not the extreme, because the extreme of most things are bad, but is there negative sides to that too? Like trying so hard to be yourself, right? Like, I haven't thought about this.
I don't think you can try too hard to be yourself. Like, the fact that that's even a question just shows, like, conformity is, like, aggressive. Because, like, you should be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You should be your true self.
Yeah.
100% yourself. You shouldn't be influenced by other people.
But is that even possible? Because there is this quote. I actually wrote my senior paper on this. Is like, I'm a part of everything that I've met, and everything that I've met is a part of me.
Okay.
Because if you think about this, you influence, no matter what, like no matter how big or small, everyone you meet. Like, you have an impact.
Yeah, that's true.
And let's say, like, we never met, we would be different people if our friendship never happened. So, like, in a way, you have impacted my life, and therefore you are part of who I am. And so there is, like, I haven't thought through this fully. So, like, I don't think the individual can exist without influences from outside world.
That just
Like,
blew my mind. I know what you mean.
I don't think I worded that right.
No, I get what you're saying. Like, you can't be individual without other people.
Yeah. And, like, to even add on to that point, is because then there's nothing else to be an individual from.
Yeah.
Like, imagine someone, I don't know if they've done this. Maybe
Like, what are you individualizing from?
Exactly. Like, if someone has been in isolation their entire life, they have no conformity, no peer pressure. And then we can look at that. Granted, they'd probably be, like, uncivilized and doesn't speak
Insane.
English. But that would be them. Because nothing has influenced them from the outside world. And yet, even today, conformity, like, this might be a good thing, it might be a bad thing. Us as Americans, us as living in Ohio, like, all these things slowly define who we are. And yes, on the micro level, as Paul and as Andrew, I like this. This is who I am. But there is still so much influence from our parents, our friends, who we are, how we grew up, religion, politics.
I take back my statement that you shouldn't be influenced by anything or anyone.
Well, I think you were saying it in the right way in that.
But
like,
I think it's like you shouldn't let it dictate your decisions.
yes, and I think that's what you were getting at.
That's what I was getting at. I want everyone to realize,
imposing this as
I want everyone to know that I did not
thought.
mean that you shouldn't be influenced by anything.
Because then you're just gonna be like, "Screw you, world," and you like flip it off and be like, but even at that point, why are you flipping someone off? Just be, like you can go down this endless circle of like, well then what you know? Like at the end of the day, I think what you were trying to say and what I do agree with is, yes, there is gonna be some form of conformity because that's what brings communities together.
Mm-hmm.
That's what brings us to grow together. Like you and
activities.
Future, like your wife, one day you will grow together, right? And like you will grow closer and become more similar because you spend time with them. And in that way, that conformity is good. So this is kind of what I'm getting at. Is conformity at its purest point is good. When you add peer pressure is when it becomes not
good.
so good. Because think about it. Like, there's no peer pressure to become closer with your wife. Or, you know, for us, there's no peer pressure to, oh, let's go play disc golf. All I had to do is like, no, I don't want to play.
Yeah.
Or whatever. There's no pressure. But the moment you're like, everyone's doing this, and that's why it's cool. And if I don't, I'm not going to be cool. I'm not going to be involved. I won't be invited. And so then maybe people don't consciously do it, but more consciously so, change your opinion, change your behavior, change who you are to fit in and conform to who they are. That, I think, is wrong and such a stumbling block to living out who you actually are.
Yeah.
That's kind of my take
Couldn't
on
have put it better myself.
That's fresh. That's from my mind. That there are probably some inconsistencies in there, but you get the point.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I completely agree. Like, I think there needs to be some level of conformity for you to be your true self.
mm-hmm.
Because you're like
you're building blocks of things.
From birth, you are influenced by your surroundings. You're influenced by your family. And then that develops into like your nature versus nurture.
Mm-hmm.
Develops into like your teachers, your classmates, and then like so on and so forth. That's how we're made. We are just meant to be influenced by other things.
Because that's what builds the individual.
Yes.
But there's a balance, just like everything
There's
else.
always a balance.
Like, you can't...
Yin and yang.
Well, I mean, think about it. Like, when you're building yourself so much towards this area of your life to fit that way, you do become unbalanced.
Right. So, like, if you're too individualistic or if you're too conformist.
Conformative?
Conformative. We don't know if that's a word.
We're making it a word.
So, like, say you're too individualistic and then not as conformity. Then you're, like, off balance.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa. Sorry, I'm moving my hands right now.
He has the little, like, the weighing
there
things,
there should be balance.
Yeah.
Because then you can be your true self.
I agree.
Your true self lies within the balance of conformity and individualism.
Mm-hmm.
And I stand by that.
I stand by that. And to even add on to that point, because when you're doing the individualistic thing, like if you're too individualistic and you're so focused on being different that that's your priority, you're not going to have friends.
That's true.
Now, like...
if you're too conformist, what's the word?
Conformative.
You're too conformative.
I think that's the word. When you conform too much, we'll just put it at that blank statement,
then you
lose yourself.
Yourself. Exactly. And that's why yourself is in the middle.
If that makes any sense.
Your true self is smack dab in the middle when everything is perfectly balanced.
Yeah, of being yourself, but knowing like what your foundations, what built you, and who has had impact on you. I think I can get behind that.
That's where I am.
Heck yeah.
Just kidding. I'm probably a little bit unbalanced, but
it's not like, you know who you are, right? And there's moments that you don't feel like yourself, and there's moments you do.
Dude, it fluctuates.
And that's just like anything.
Like any scale, it fluctuates.
It does. It goes up and down and up and down.
It could be here for like 4 years, but then it could like slide.
Or a day. Yeah.
Like, or a day. Like, who knows? I'm still using my hands, guys, for those not watching.
Just imagine him doing the little weight scale thing with his hands. Yeah, it's just...
Now I'm conforming to using the weight scale to describe things as balanced.
Like, I don't know. With a lot of things we'll talk on this show, there is never a right answer.
We're just talking.
And, there is good and bad to individualism. There's good and bad to conformity. And heck, there's even good and bad to peer pressure. Because if someone is lazy, not doing anything, and they're sitting around with people who are motivated, and they're like, you know what? I want to get motivated. Yeah, sure, they're getting motivated because they're around motivated people, but that's still good for them in the moment.
Good peer pressure.
So it's a complicated question, and so I guess what I'm bringing this up as is, we get that. We get it's complicated, and down to the individual that you are, it's different for you, but we want you to think about it. Like Paul did versus tall Paul. I mean, you were that for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, people listening.
Don't call me tall Paul.
Don't call him tall Paul. He will punch you, not really. He'll just be like, what's up? And not do anything about it, but you'll hurt his feelings on the inside.
just a small bit. I usually correct people.
Especially after this.
Yeah.
Now you have no excuse. If you listen to this and you still call him tall Paul, gosh.
Dude.
Come on.
Also, I changed that, all my social media to just Paul Canner. And people still will call me tall Paul.
It's because they met you as that.
Can't you read?
I mean, first impressions are important. Like, how you meet someone is how you remember them. If it's bad, it takes a lot longer to make it back to good. If it's good, it's easy to mess it up.
Mm-hmm.
We remember bad things easier. That's off topic, though. Back to what I was saying. Oh, yes. People listening.
Mm-hmm.
Just for a moment, think about who you are and what that means. And if in your life you have people that are over the top pushing you to something, or maybe yourself, that you're pushing yourself to be this thing, think about that. That might not be healthy. That might not be you. It could be peer pressure. It could be conformity. Could be individualism.
Could be.
You'll never know until you think about it.
And that's our challenge for this week.
Dude, we're getting to the challenge early. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Go for it. I mean, I kind of said it, but sum it up in one sentence, Paul.
Okay, just our challenge this week. Think about who you are. Think about if you're conforming or if you're being individualistic, and try to find your happy medium, your middle, to see what your true self is actually like.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah. Something like that.
If someone 50 years ago listened to this, I feel like they were so anti-individual. It was always so they wouldn't point blank say that, but people were a lot more conformative, and the individual oftentimes got cast out. So we live in a good world.
Look at the way people dressed.
Nowadays, we do have so much freedom, and it is more accepted to be yourself, which is cool. And so that's even another thing on you might think people care, but they don't. You might think people are judging you, but they're not. And if they are, forget them. You're not living for them.
You're living for yourself.
Yeah.
And
if you believe in God, then God, or People have their morals and their standards and their worldviews, and I guess that's part of the individual. The final thing I kind of want to touch on is, and the reason I wanted to bring this up way back in the beginning when I first thought about this idea before I brought it up to you, is like, I think peer pressure and conformity can be an enemy of being unaware.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you think about it, the idea of having to know it all, the idea of, or even better, the question of what if is a lot of times based off what other people think, how other people view you, peer pressure.
Peer pressure. There
And
it is.
I really, really think peer pressure is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, proponents of why people don't chase things that they think they want to chase, don't chase things that make them better, grow them, teach them who they are. Like, list goes down. Like, we have to know what it is, because if we don't, I don't know what other people will think. I don't know how other people will view me.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And it just,
I was unaware that peer pressure was related to
every time. I
to
mean,
being unaware. No, but I totally agree with you. Like, I think that peer pressure makes you think about like what you're doing, and it makes you want to like fit in with how
much do
not
you analyze
not
yourself?
doing things that like you think would be out of the ordinary or like crazy or like peer pressure is a big factor in that.
It is. Like, when you are going out somewhere, going to hang out with friends, how much do you analyze yourself? What you wear, what you're doing, how you act, what you say.
Mm-hmm. Dude.
I will say this. A lot of times, it's subconscious. You don't have to think about it because you've done it so much.
So many times.
And so when it comes to that thing of like, oh, I can't do, like, I really want to do this, but I can't. Because what if other people laugh at me, you know, or like whatever it is. You then psychoanalyze yourself, and that's where you become like over aware of what you're doing, how you're thinking. And it all started with worrying about what other people think. Not fitting that peer
like,
pressure, that status quo.
Yeah. Like, for me, it's like, oh, well, what if people think that I'm a failure if I do this and don't succeed or whatever?
Failure's good, man.
Failure creates...
If anything, that's my biggest beef with our society is that the way we view failure. When I have kids one day, I'm going to ask them weekly how they failed. I'm not kidding. Because think about it.
I believe it, man.
That's also the type of guy I am. But then they are growing up.
Hey, Johnny.
How'd you fail this week?
How'd you fail this week, buddy?
Like a dinner. Because then they grow up knowing that they should shoot for failure. Because that means they're trying something new.
Shouldn't shoot for failure.
Shoot to try new things and be okay with failure.
Yes.
And
that's what
here's the thing that I'm
you
going
should be
to
okay
also
with
hopefully
failure.
educate my kids on is to get back up and try again.
Yeah.
Because so many people today don't try things because they're afraid of failing. Which we talked about that in like episode 2. But it's just the way we're conditioned, conformity. Well, tie it back to this episode. But if like people grow up and our culture is more okay with failure, like, hey, try things and fail. That's awesome. That means you tried something. And guess what? Sometimes it's going to be a success. Or guess what? Sometimes failure is success because then you don't know, or you know that you don't like it.
You know how to not do something.
You learn so much more during a failure than when you succeed.
That's true.
You learn what you did wrong, how you
think
grow,
you
how
should
you
strive
get better.
for failure, though.
In a way, I think you should. This is what I mean by that. Is because if our entire lives we are striving to avoid failure, then we're never going to do things that we might fail at. But if I go into it being like, you know what, if I fail, that's awesome. I'm going to do it anyway. And because the way I look at failure is like that, that allows me to learn more and appreciate success even more.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I strive for that failure, right, like that's my baseline.
Yeah.
That's the average. I'm okay with failing because I know that sometimes I'll get that next step of success. Or I use that failure to succeed.
Right.
That's kind of what I mean by that.
I see what you mean. But no one wants to fail.
Because that's the way
it
we're
doesn't
conditioned.
feel good.
Because that's the way we have built our society, Paul. That's what I'm getting at.
Dang.
That's the way we view failure.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
We get made fun of. People laugh at us. Why? Because there's that pressure to succeed. There's that peer pressure not to be bad at something.
Also, just the word, dude.
Huh?
Fail. Like
why? Why is
fail,
it different than any other
word?
word?
When you fail a test or you fail a class, you feel so down on yourself because, like, that's as low as you can go.
You're labeled as a failure.
That's a terrible thing.
Because we make it that way.
What's another word that we can substitute for failure?
No, I think that goes to show the power of the word failure and how we view it.
Yeah.
Like, yes, people should strive to succeed, to pass tests, to get that. But we should be, like, I guess where people could take this wrong is just be okay with failing the rest of their life and not doing anything about it.
Right.
I think what I'm getting at is shoot for success, and when you fail,
be okay with it.
Be okay with
and
it.
Learn from it.
And learn from it. Yeah.
I got you.
Instead of being like, oh, I failed, I can't tell anyone. No, it's like, dude, I did this the other day and I messed up. And we could talk about it and I can learn from it. Like,
and try again. Get back
and try
up.
again. And I don't think our society can just instantly do that. But if we did, I mean, that takes away a lot of peer pressure. Right? Like, if we're constantly trying not to fail in front of other people, to, you know, especially in high school, oh, I got to be cool, I can't mess up. Or when we played sports in high school, if I missed a tackle or a touchdown catch, I was like, dude, everyone's going to make fun of me. Like, I missed the game-winning hit. Like, people are going to make fun of me. Oh, I'm a lose. You know, like, all those things of thinking about how other people think about you.
Right.
And that's all because that fear of failure. So, I did say peer pressure is one of the biggest opponents to being unaware and being okay with it. I think there's a lot of things into that, like failure and everything, which we'll talk about on other days, but
failure.
I don't know. That came into my mind and I want to say it. It's just how
I
peer pressure blocks.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I think we should be okay with failure.
Yeah, but we're not. It's simple as that.
We're not.
Just like we think too much about what other people think about my shoes or my eye color, whatever it is.
Can't control your eye color.
And yet people still are like, why do I have blue eyes? Why do I have brown eyes? Oh, I wish I had this because then I'd ... Which sounds silly, but I have heard so many people say that. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're your eyes. They're dope.
You don't control that. Your parents do, but they
don't even control that. Genetics, man.
Genetics. Genes.
It's just like, there's just so many little stupid things like that. That when we conform to that society, when we let that peer pressure hit, that it breaks us. It breaks our own view of ourselves, of being okay with being me, having blue eyes, having brown eyes, whatever it is, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think peer pressure is a big problem. I don't know how to fix it. I think as an individual, to not try to peer pressure other people is the best thing that I can do.
Yeah. And that's our second challenge.
Don't
peer pressure people.
Just,
I'm kidding.
Well, be conscious of it.
No, be okay.
Be a good human being.
And that brings us to our third challenge.
At the end of the day, just be a good human being, man.
That brings us to our fourth challenge.
That's the same as the third.
Be okay
man.
with failing.
Yeah, we'll probably...
No, I'm kidding. We don't have that many challenges. The first challenge and only challenge is to find yourself this week.
No, that just sounds weird. Find yourself. Wait.
Okay.
First use of an actual sound effect that works. Let's go.
Our first and only challenge
Take some time.
is take some time and find yourself.
Just think about like the things in your life and what defines you and what you want to go more into and what you want to cut out, and think about why.
Figure out where you're at on the conformity individual scale.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
we
then
made that scale. I like
See
it.
if you can
Figure out where you're at.
balance it out, or see what you need to do to balance it out.
Mhm. So, yeah, I think we can end it there. There's a lot of things I still want to say, but I'm like, that would just be another podcast.
Dude,
Like failure and...
yeah, we can talk about failure for God knows how long.
Yep. Or, yeah, I'm going to stop there before, because I have another one that I'm like, well, we may as well talk about that. That just popped in my head. So, yeah, I think that was a good conversation today. Kind of talking about, I honestly appreciate you being open about that, the tall Paul to Paul thing. Like,
Yeah, dude.
I honestly didn't know parts of that,
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know it was 8 years. I didn't know it was when you were on summer staff. Like, those are little things like I didn't know.
I mean, there was a ton leading up to it, but that was just kind of like the turning point.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm sure. I mean, 8 years is a long time to build up to, but still, appreciate the openness and just,
Of course, dude.
I don't know where too. It just kind of fit. Just kind of talked about it. So
Yeah.
that's what we do here on the Unaware podcast.
Yeah, I was unaware that I'd be telling the tall Paul story on this podcast.
Yeah. Well, we do appreciate you guys, listening and supporting us. We joke about the sponsorship, but it would mean the world to us if you can go to Project Unaware. I mean, there's a little box that you can leave comments on there that we'll fill out the tip jar with. If there's someone you want to see, if there's ideas, topics you want us here to talk about, questions you have for us, like anything can be there. The one thing I ask is that, like, just don't hate. Like, that's not what we're about. Yes, we're not perfect. We say things that might not completely make sense, might not be true for you, but it's a conversation we're having. And that's what we're here to do. And we hope that it can be thought-provoking for you to just take away something.
Yeah.
So if there's something, anything, any comment, tag it, and we will physically write it and put it in the tip jar.
Yeah, we will. It's looking a little empty.
Well, it's because we haven't launched this yet.
Not launched
We're doing so
yet.
much pre-work. Once we get going, we'll get that thing filled. Before we stop recording here, any final thoughts, Paul?
Just don't succumb to peer pressure.
Just don't do it.
Just don't do it. Be yourself.
You're awesome. Like, remember that. As
Yeah.
an individual, you bring something to the table.
You're influencing someone in a positive way.
It might not feel like that, might not seem like that, but you are.
Yeah, you are.
And if you need to hear that, heck, email me and I will literally tell you that, because I know you're awesome. Maybe we haven't even met, but I just know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we love you.
We do love you.
Check us out on the social media. If you do, want to talk to us about that challenge we gave, you can always DM our socials, email us. We're trying to be as available as possible.
Tell us your stories. Like,
we would love
what
that.
happened? Who are you? If you want to be on the podcast, talk about it. Let us know.
Yeah, we'd love that, man. I want to keep it real. So
keep it real.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end. Check back next week, next Monday at 7 a.m. And maybe you'll see my good friend and Paul's good friend, Charlie. But in the meantime, it was a pleasure. And
as always,
Sleaze.
Sleaze.